Okay, so Berserk is back, okay? And I made a video going over this. Very on me, I made a video about the future of videos. But in the last video, I said that Berserk reviews were gonna be a thing. I was gonna be doing them for each chapter. And then we had a little bit of an incident that I did touch on in that video. Berserk released two chapters at once. 1065 and no, not 10. Jesus, One Piece is getting in my brain. 365 and 366, both released at once in the latest Young Animal, and I've taken it upon myself to review them. And as you're seeing on screen right now, I did a color for 1060. Not 10. Jesus, every time I say 10, just ignore it. I did a color for 65, but I didn't do a color for 66 because I just didn't want to, and I couldn't really find a panel I wanted to. So yeah, that was it. But we're just gonna get into the chapter. We're gonna walk through it. The normal video idea, just walking through the chapter, explaining what happened, my thoughts, my opinions. All in all, I'll say this before I go into each chapter because I might forget to touch on this later. I loved the art. I think they did an amazing job, not copying but emulating Miura's style. Because like there are some shots in the chapter that don't look exactly like Miura would have done them. Like, the last page of 66 looks a little off. Some panels with Griffith and Gus look a little off, but those things I'll touch on as they happen. But I like the art. But something that I will say is very unfortunate is these chapters played out pretty much exactly how the fandom expected them to, with like every detail about Griffith shows up, Guts sees him, what Guts does, Casca's reaction, but these last two chapters were kind of predictable, and I hate saying that because that's one thing Berserk has never been. It's never been predictable. Like, in Golden Age, you didn't predict the eclipse. In in the Conviction arc, you didn't fucking expect the rebirth ceremony. Hawking Millennium Empire, you don't expect the Ganishka reveal thing, the big tree. But this felt like a very obvious thing. And like I said, I hate saying it because Berserk has never been predictable. Like, yes, some of the tropes that it's played on have been predictable, but it's always subverted that at some point. That's all I really want to say about that. Absolutely no hate to Mori, who is basically the writer for this. Absolutely no offense to Miura if this is what he wanted to happen. I just feel like it was kind of the safest way of doing it. But yeah. So we start our two chapters with, of course, 365. And one thing I will also say is we got a color page. And it brings back an issue that I brought up in the last video as well. You can tell that Studio Gaga did these colors. I don't know how, but the way I'd explain it is when Miura did a digital color, you could still tell it was Miura. Like, he used the digital as kind of a way to embrace his own art style. He was painting digitally versus what he used to do, which is what I'm gonna guess he just painted or did it on panel with like physical stuff. But this looks too digital, I guess. Like, Puck's glow is too good, Guts looks a little bit too perfect. There's not enough mess for Berserk, is what I'm trying to say. But the chapter opens up with finally our first extended time in so long that we get Puck contributing to the story while in his actual form. We've seen him in his actual form here and there, kind of just in throwaway panels, but most of the time he's in chestnut form. But this is his first time, like, big moment in physical form where he's actually helping the viewer see something. And what he's pointing out is all of the beings on Elfhelm sense something is wrong. As the residents say, it's here, something's here. Man, nay, a fearsome being come from the outside has breached this island. So they have a feeling that something is happening, because of course they do, because the astral realm, I'm going to guess everything in the astral realm is connected through this tether, and Griffith just has this presence of being a God Hand member that you can just feel his presence. I'm going to guess a lot of people on this island could feel his presence, but that's just really cool. Next, we cut to Casca with Shirke. Shirke is seemingly cleaning up some dishes, but Casca is a little interested in something that's going on outside. And she goes to the door and she stops. She freezes. And Shirke wants to see what she sees. And what she sees is the back of Guts and Griffith just standing there. And that's where you get the double page spread that I colored for the chapter. And Casca's brand starts pouring blood. Like in Black Swordsman, we saw how Bran reacts to a God Hand member. It fucking sprayed blood when Guts was around all the God Hand. And we saw how Casca's brand reacted to Griffith on the Hilltop of Swords. It did something very similar to this. So we finally have a kind of scale for how the brand bleeds. It kind of leaks with other beings. Apostles, it kind of streams. But with God Hand members, it fucking pours. And a nice detail that I will say is, I love how the brand is drawn in this panel. It looks like a brand that's just bleeding. Like, it looks scarred, because it's been, 3 years since the eclipse? Give or take a few months. It's been a long while, and it's scarred, but it still bleeds. Then we get a whole page dedicated to Casca's memories of being Elaine, everything. I believe she dropped her necklace, and that's what the top panel is, but we just see the Sea God, we see the Trolls, we see Tower of Conviction, and we get to see that her necklace breaks, I think is what it's trying to convey. But there's also a panel of the eclipse, which is a very big moment, because this is the first time without her going completely psychotic. Like, I hate saying psychotic. Without her going completely screaming, this is the first time she has thought of the eclipse. Yes, she still does scream. And yes, she passes out. But, like, this is the first time that she has been able to... This is the most she's been able to process the eclipse since she's been sane. And then we see Shirke react to Griffith. And Griffith has this fucking, like, conqueror's hockey, basically, of just staring at Shirke and just energy, I guess. Just his spiritual energy just fucking blasts her. And she gets a fucking face full of it. And then we get to see Casca screaming. And we got another panel of the brand just gushing blood. But then we get to see, in my opinion, the coolest series of panels. And it is Guts just, I guess, trying to hold back, but he just fucking snaps. So you have the panel of him gritting his teeth, eyes white, and then you have the Beast of Darkness coming over the cloak, which cuts to the other cuts to another double page spread of a close-up on his mechanical arm, and then this detailed shot of him just going full fucking psycho. Just him going Berserk mode. Both using the Berserker armor. And he bum rushes Griffith, draws the Dragon Slayer, and that's where chapter 365 ends. Which doesn't really matter, because we get another chapter. But before I go into that chapter, I want to voice my opinion on... I guess I'll voice my opinion on this chapter. Very short. I think it came out to like 19 pages in total, because a lot of double page spreads and stuff. But it just felt really short. And I'll say this now, because I could also say it at the end, but I don't want to forget it again. I feel like they could have put these two chapters into one and just released it. Like, spoiler alert, I guess, the beginning of the next chapter, I believe, has a cutaway to another point of view. But Berserk does that. It cuts from point of view to point of view in a chapter. So I don't know why it's this big break. I guess, in my opinion, Mori told them that Miura was going to have a break after, like, a break of a chapter here. 2, this is just what a normal chapter is going to be, and they wanted to get the readers accustomed to it. Or 3, they wanted to ride the hype of saying we're releasing 2 chapters, but they didn't want to release 2 full chapters, so they released 1 chapter, basically. Any of those could be true. I'm leaning more towards one of the first 2, but 3 is still a possibility. Going to chapter... Oh, I didn't give my... Yeah, I did. Sorry. Jesus, I have terrible memory. Kind of the next chapter, we see Guts... recap of him pulling the Dragon Slayer out and swinging, and he's screaming, Griffith! His normal thing, but it's a deeper, because I can't do that. And I didn't read off the name of the last chapter, but this is chapter 666, Eye of the Maelstrom, and this actually has the credits of this chapter. I don't know if the last one did. Let me see. You have the double page spread. No, you don't. Weird. Well, you did, but last chapter is called Waning Moon's Quietude. Okay, so that's the name. But in the Eye of the Maelstrom, we get like the full credits with a panel on that same page, and I guess I'll read it now because this does sum up how I like the fact that they did this. Original author Miura Kentaro, manga by Studio Gaga, Kurosaki, and all the other I'm gonna guess artists, and then director Mori Koji. I like the fact that they did this because you always see. Like with, just because it's the only example I can think of, One Piece. You have all the spin-off material, but it's always original work by Ichiro Oda. With the Berserk games and the books, it's always original work by Kentaro Miura. So with this being original author Kentaro Miura, but they made that very clear distinction that there's a director now. I just like that. Something really small. But we see him, Guts swing the Dragon Slayer with the black eye silhouette, or the black face white eye silhouette, and I love it. This brings me back to like reading Lost Children for the first time. But then we can see Guts swinging the Dragon Slayer through Griffith. Like it just cuts him from shoulder to dick basically, but doesn't cut him. It just goes through him, and Guts ends up on the other side of Griffith from the momentum. He turns around, swings a sword again, and it cuts right through where Griffith's head would be. But it just goes through his head. And Guts sees that Griffith is completely fine. And he just kind of stands there basically saying, "That all you got," with his eyes. With this really cocky smile on his face. And I want to point it out now because since I'm at this point of the chapter, Griffith looks very skinny. And, like, Griffith has always been a very slender guy. That was kind of his whole thing, is that you have Guts, who's this big brute, and then Griffith, who's this more slender, speed-based fighter. But they're basically on the same level before the eclipse. Or before Guts leaves. But there are a lot of ways that this could go. One, this is just how the studio drew Griffith. This was no deeper idea. It's just how they drew him. They maybe threw off his proportions. Maybe I'm overreacting. But he looks really skinny. 2, more of a, you think that Griffith's a dickhead option. Griffith knows that Casca will see him again. And he probably has the sense of, Guts did something to get her back. So she's gonna finally be able to see me. So I'm gonna make myself look skinnier to kind of play off the emotions of tortured Griffith, like the tortured appearance that Griffith had, just to kind of fuck with her. Which, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. The motherfucker is insane, a dick, a psycho, condescending, asshole, anything you want to say. I wouldn't put it past him. But continuing to move on, we get some fucking amazing shots of Guts. So you have him just going full, like, somebody in the Berserk TCG server pointed out a fact that the translation of it is ha ha ha, which is obviously laughing if you say ha ha ha, but the way that it's inked makes it feel like like breathing, like he's hyperventilating, he's going fucking, like, we know what insane Guts is, but he's going beyond that without the armor taking over. He's hyperventilating, he can't think straight, because in the next page we just get more of the panting, but we get snapshots of everything that Gus has done the Beast of Darkness, all of his fighting, the Dragon Slayer itself, and he thinks of all of this while hyperventilating. But somebody in the Berserk TCG server pointed out the fact that this very well could be Guts, going into like a fit of hysteria almost, where he cannot process the fact that he can't hit Griffith, and he's kind of laughing at himself for thinking that he could, and then he's thinking about everything that he's done to get to this point, and just seeing how futile it all was. I don't personally buy into that. I think this is just him panting, and the translation for that sound effect has never been that good, because ha is the best way you can translate it, but it looks like ha-ha. But the next page, it is a full page dedicated to Guts swinging the Dragon Slayer, which I love, but the Dragon Slayer looks a little short in this page, I'll fully admit it. Like, I don't know if it's, again, just perspective, or if this is just they drew the sword shorter so they could fit it into the page, whatever. But the sword looks very short, but I'd love to see Guts in full page glory swinging the Dragon Slayer. And then we get to cut to Shirke, a very weird jump, I would say. And she's in the astral world. And she's saying, that's a person? No way. And then a little point of contention in the chapter is the translation has someone saying master twice, but both of them are cut off at the beginning and end, in the panel with Shirke. The way that I interpret it is it's Farnese saying master, trying to like pull her out of what she's thinking. But another way that I've seen this is, and I'm gonna fully admit this sounds a little goofy and I don't believe it, I don't think a whole lot of people would, but that not Farnese, Shirke thinks that this is her master, it's Flora, even though it is very obviously Griffith. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that's Griffith, but that's just an interpretation I saw that someone had. And then we see that Farnese is kind of pulling Shirke out of that mindset of looking at it and tells her, Master, you must go no farther. That aside, that thing, yes, do you see? We shouldn't go near such terrible power. Its very being is like a maelstrom consuming all. And Shirke says, thank you for anchoring my mind, let's go back. And they speak in like gobbledygook, I guess, gibberish, as they see something happens to Griffith, like his being. And they're both back in their mind. Farnese is cradling Casca. And they both look at Guts. And they see that Guts is not exactly handling what has happened well. And I think this is how you should translate the panting. You shouldn't have it be H-A-H-A. It should be H-A-A-H, because it makes it feel more like a pant. If you put it H-A-H-A, it makes it feel like a laugh, but this is very clearly just my personal opinion as someone who kind of voice acts manga for my own fun. That's how I would interpret it, no matter what, but the H-A-A-H just makes it obvious. And we get to see another panel of Guts just glaring at Griffith, and Griffith's just looking at him just like, is that all you got? And this wind, I guess, picks up, and it starts pulling the fog and stuff around. And then we cut back to Puck, and he says, I can feel it, something is coming. And then in the next panel, we get to see a very familiar tail and wings bursting out of the world tree, and it blows past Puck, and it zooms down to the ground. And based off of all these silhouettes, you can tell who it is. But a very familiar claw comes down on Guts, who is illuminated by his entire face is black except for a circle for his eye. And Guts is able to dodge the attack, but kind of barely. And the last page of The Return of Berserk is a double-page spread of Nosferatu Zod on Elfhelm with Guts and Griffith. And the teaser text is, the wedge is driven into the island that suffers no evil. A deluge of darkness descends. Continues next issue. So I'm gonna guess no more hiatuses for Berserk unless the studio needs it. but at the point that they have a very good estimate for 6 chapters for this arc, I'm willing to say that they have it all drawn out, at least storyboarded. But I will point out this, since we have reached it, I brought it up earlier, Zod looks a little weird to me here. He's always been very, not consistent, that's the wrong term. He has gone through his art style changes, but even with the art style changes, he has a consistent look. He has a snout, he has his horns angled outwards, his proportions have always been similar, whatever. And his proportions are similar here, except his snout, in my opinion, is kind of pushed in. He looks more cat-like than dog-like, which, like, he's not either, obviously. And he does play more towards the cat point of view with the claws and everything. But his snout is shorter than usual. And another thing, I brought it up, is his horns are usually angled outward. Like, not completely, but they're kind of angled, I'd say, like, 30-ish degrees from each other. But these horns just look completely parallel, if the second one was there. They look like they're going too much forward and not enough out. I don't know how to explain it, but I just feel like they should be going out. Also, I forgot to change the picture, even though I had it here, I guess. I'll put this up while I talk about everything. So, Berserk, right? I love this series. I guess this will be me telling my Berserk story while this is the first chapter that's come back since Miura's been gone. Other than the last chapter, whatever. You know what I mean? This is the continuation, so I'm gonna say how I read Berserk. I got into Berserk, what was it? 2018, I think. Late 2018 into 2019. And I remember very, very specifically, I had to take my freshman year exams for algebra. And the teacher, I had more exams to do after this, so I couldn't leave school and then come back. So I had to stay in my math teacher's room, but we had our school-issued computers, and I read Berserk afterwards. And that's when I was coming up near the end, or catching up, I should say. And the first chapter that I read as it came out was the chapter where Skull Knight, the chapter after Skull Knight tells him, you bear witness to the end of your journey. So the one where he kind of leads Guts to the cave, and then Guts gets his armor hit by the hammer. That's when I came into Berserk, like, as a chapter-by-chapter reader. And the experience of waiting for Berserk chapters was, in no pretentious terms, it was fucking amazing. Like, yeah, of course it's kind of annoying that you can't get multiple chapters soon after each other. You have to wait 3 months. But when Miura passed, he was kind of on a consistent thing. Like, it was coming out every 3 or 4 months. Not a whole lot, but they were consistent. And 1064, if I remember correctly, was due to release in June of 2021, but Miura passed in May of 2021. So they canceled the chapter, postponed it until September. And that fucking hurt. But I'm going to get off that tangent, sorry. This is the first time I have seen Zod in a chapter-by-chapter basis. Same thing with Griffith, I think. I'm not too sure. But this is the first time I've seen Zod in a chapter-by-chapter basis. And holy fucking shit. If this is how Miura was going to draw Zod, I have no complaints. Like, I'm not going to say that Miura drew Zod poorly. But I have a very vague feeling that Miura did not draw Zod like this at any point. This can be just being completely wrong, though. Opinions on the 2 chapters. Like I said, after the first chapter, very short, both of them. I feel like when you have this big monumental thing of you continuing Berserk, you kind of want to give the reader a lot. And breaking this into 2 chapters seems like a lot. Like, you're getting 2 chapters. But just the material given wasn't enough for 2 chapters. It was more so 1 chapter. Like I said, if you would have put them into 1 chapter, that would have been fine. So I feel like it could have been a bigger thing if you give the reader, like, what would it have been? Like a 30-some, like a 33, I think it comes out to, page chapter. Versus, like, 2 chapters, one being 19, one being 13, that just kind of feels short. Like, yes, again, you have the hype of 2 chapters, but giving the in my opinion, quantity of pages in a chapter is better than quantity of chapters released at once. Because when you have, like I said, 19 pages in the first chapter, I think, then 13 or 14 in the next, that doesn't look, or that doesn't feel good when you're looking at just those numbers. But if you have one chapter with 33 pages as your comeback of Berserk, that is big. Because, like, that's a Miura level chapter. That's a Miura length chapter. Which, again, might also be the issue. Maybe the studio isn't up to drawing Miura level chapters yet, which I'd completely understand. I don't want to ramble on too long because I feel like I'm just going to be repeating most of the same points. It was nice seeing everyone back in the Berserk manga. I really hope this doesn't go the way everyone expects it to, because, like, there are already predictions of how this is going to go. I just really hope it doesn't. I have my own theory on what's going to happen. I'm debating if I should type the entire thing out at once and then post it or read it as a, like, kind of a video, a theory. I might do that, actually. That seems kind of fun. I have, like I've always said, I have videos in the works, but I don't edit at all. I do edit, but these would be more in-depth visual editing, so I kind of have to weigh that. And yeah, those have to come out eventually. I know they do. But yeah, the Berserk theory might come out. My theory on what's going to happen in the next few chapters. 6 chapters until the end of Fantasia, and then we start a new arc. Yeah, so that's going to put us at 372 for the end of Fantasia, if my math suits me right. No, it'd probably be like 370. Because counting these 2 chapters, it'd be 370. So yeah, 6 more chapters for Fantasia, and then we're on to another arc that I have no idea what it's going to be. I'd assume it's going to be the final arc, because Miura multiple times has said that Berserk was 60 to 80% finished. In an interview with Oda, he straight up said it's 60 to 80% finished, and this was like right before his passing. So I feel like we have this arc end and then a next arc. But you also have to remember Berserk is weird with the arcs because it's similar to Wano, where it's like you have the arc and then you have chapters in it. So like you have Conviction arc with the Lost Children, Tower of Conviction, the Rebirth chapters. But yeah. And then these are episodes, so I guess episode 365, whatever. But yeah, this was my opinion, my look through, I guess, my read through, my review, my breakdown, my opinions, my nostalgia on Berserk's return with Studio Gaga at the helm with Koji Mori. I think they did a good job bringing Berserk back. As much as I complained, I have nothing to complain about, because if it wasn't thanks to these guys, we wouldn't be getting Berserk. And I am going to shut up now, because the more I talk, the more I could dig a hole for myself. Thank you, Studio Gaga. Thank you, Koji Mori. Thank you, Miura. Until next time, stay safe, have fun, read more manga, and keep on struggling. Okay, guys. Bye.